Nuns are one of my favorite groups of people. They're not only committed to social and economic justice, but they also enjoy a nice glass of red wine like myself. At the White Violet Eco-Justice Center, located on the grounds of St. Mary's in Terre Haute, Indiana, you will find 1,200 acres of sustainable farmland. The nuns there offer not only education, but internships where interns learn not only about farming, but environmental policy making. The White Violet Eco-Justice Center does not receive any funds from the Vatican, and it's quite amazing what this small group of the Sisters of Providence are accomplishing there. So I really want you to think about perhaps supporting their endeavors after you watch the video. Bon appetit.
I think one of my favorite dishes is a zucchini casserole. The sister I lived with came up with this wonderful recipe for zucchini in a casserole form. It was in self-defense because she doesn't like vegetables very much, so she does like other things that went into it. So we used to eat a lot of zucchini casserole in the summer, so it remains one of my favorite dishes.
Yes.
My name is Sister Ann Sullivan, and I'm the founder and first director of White Violet Center, and currently I am on the faculty of St. Mary of the Woods College. Well, the center is established to shed light on the need for sustainability and education in all areas of eco-justice, recognizing that all creation is interconnected and interdependent. White Violet exists to educate for a more sustainable future. And we do that by utilizing our own resources here at St. Mary of the Woods, which are considerable land, the possibility of animals, which we have, and then the whole history of education in our community as well. Well, I'm a farm kid. I grew up in Western Illinois on a farm and have always felt connected and involved in the natural world. And I was complaining loudly to our General Superior, with whom I was living at the time, about the use of pesticides and herbicides on our land. And I think she finally got tired of hearing me complain and said, all right, make a proposal because I don't know for sure how to deal with this. So I did, and no one paid any attention to it. No one thought it was their purview. But what really happened during that time was that lots of people, a lot of sisters saw the proposal, one page. Let's do this. We have buildings, we have land, we have people, we have a commitment to eco-justice as a congregation, so let's do it. And surprisingly, we did. We didn't think about it for a while, we didn't rewrite it several times. We just said, let's do it. And literally that's how it came into being.
My name is Lori Heber, and I'm the director of the White Violet Center for Eco-Justice at St. Mary of the Woods. The White Violet Center and the land that the Sisters of Providence have here in St. Mary of the Woods is 1,200 acres of property. Everything from certified forests to certified organic farmland to organically grown gardens, about 7 acres of gardens. We have pastures with alpaca, 47 head of alpaca here on the grounds. And it attracts a wide variety of people. We have tours, we have field trips, we have garden clubs, we have pilgrims and seekers and people just wandering in off of the road. And it's amazing to be able to show them this place and all of the abundance of land. And it really helps to create and reconnect people with creation and with the land. You would see blueberry patches, you would see raspberry patches, you would see blackberry patches, orchards, places where we've tried and failed for the last few years to keep bees. You would see our compost bins, you would see hoop houses and greenhouses and hoop house. Hoop houses are high tunnels, other people might call them, where we can extend the growing season. They're unheated houses where we can grow vegetables made out of metal and plastic. They are not heated. They are passive solar, so they receive the heating and from the sun We're able to roll up the sides to add air or roll them down to keep the warmth in. And we're able to grow lettuce, spinach, and greens well into the season, sometimes all season long, depending on the harshness of the winter. Well, we have lots of alpacas. We have 47 alpacas. We have barns and pastures for girls and boys. We keep them separate because when you don't, you have an overabundance of alpacas. But we have them all over the property. You will see our orchards. You will see chickens. We have chickens. We raise them for eggs. We have new chicks that we're raising and we'll be adding to our flock. You will see the beautiful trees. It is St. Mary of the Woods, and the woods are absolutely stunning. They've been well cared for many, many years. When I took the job and was just brainstorming some ideas of things that could be done with this wonderful land, and talking with the founder, Ann Sullivan, Sister Ann, about possibilities, she stated that early on a study was done that indicated that there's some windy knolls on the property that would be prime for growing grapes. The sisters at that time, when the center was founded, weren't of a mind. However, they might, with the right business model, be interested in perhaps growing grapes for wine.
Go for it, Lori.
Well, whenever you make changes, as you know, and we're making changes on the campus of our college and our mother house where we have 200 some sisters living, it's always difficult when things actually change. So I heard the comment, I do want to do this, but I didn't think it would mean mowing less of the campus. I didn't think it would mean bringing livestock on the land. I didn't think it would mean whatever. So it took people a while to really get the total picture of how all of these things were interconnected. And then they began to really support what was going on. Education, education, education. We took every opportunity we had to meet with the sisters, to talk with them about what we were doing and why we were doing it, and continuing to try to put the spirituality of connection, interdependence, sustainability, always working on that spirituality, which has really been ours from the beginning, because our foundress, St. Theodore Guerin, had that in her bones. Her horse, her dog, her orchards. So we had kind of all grown up in this community with a sense of this is home in a very profound way. And I think when people began to understand that we had a commitment not only to the future but to the past in keeping alive the values of our congregation, then they really began to support it wholeheartedly.
And for a long time, the sisters actually had a program called Providence Volunteer Ministers. And most of the people who came out to work on the farm were actually coming through Providence Volunteer Ministers. They were PVMs. But a few years ago, when they folded that program, we decided that what we needed to do as part of our ministry and as part of our education was to really expand the internship program to fill that gap that the PVMs had been filling. So we would usually have maybe 1 or 2 interns a year. We started expanding that. We started bringing in 3, 4, 5 interns. In fact, this summer we're going to have 8, maybe even 9 interns here over the summer, which is the most we've ever had. We get interns from everywhere. We've had a lot of interns locally who actually live in Terre Haute or live in Indiana. We've gotten interns from Washington State, from Alabama. I just picked up somebody from the airport today, actually from New Jersey. We get them from a lot of different locations. We haven't gotten anyone, I don't think, from a different country yet. Although we have had a couple of applications for other people, it didn't work out. And as far as what they get out of our program, I think it matters a lot what they're here for. So we have a lot of applicants who, they really want to come here to learn how to run a small farm, how to start a farm, how to run a farm. And to that end, we give them a great deal of hands-on experience. This is what it's really like on the ground, which can be substantially different from what you read in a book. about how to manage, how to do all the planting, all of the animal care and things like that, as well as a lot of the bookkeeping, a lot of the regulations you have to follow. But it caught me off guard when I started working here that I would get a lot of applicants for people who were in perhaps foreign language or policy, poli-sci, or urban planning, urban development. And as it happens, what these people typically want to do is they either want to go to other areas and help them work on agricultural development, or maybe they want to go into environmental policy, environmental advocacy, and things like that. They, on the other hand, they'll still get a lot of the same on-the-ground experience in terms of agriculture, but what I hope is they take that with them when they then go to advocate for agricultural issues, or when they go to work on policy, and they actually have an understanding of what it is like to do those things, which is, I think, very different from a lot of the people who are making policy for us and don't really know what it's like to farm. So my hope is that these kids are going to go out and really have the experience they need to represent farmers effectively.
I started June 1st of last year, so I've been here a full year and a day, I guess. I came from another farm. Well, I graduated from the University of Minnesota with a degree in care ethics. Actually, it's a feminist ethic and sustainable agriculture. And I realized, though I knew sort of the academic piece, I didn't have any practical experience with farming. I mean, I grew up in a rural area, but so I knew it would sort of be a long haul in terms of learning. It's not something you could just pick up in a short, like 3-month internship. So anyways, I spent 2 years on a farm in Wisconsin, a dairy farm. It was an intentional community that included adults with developmental disabilities. So I found that integrated my sort of interests in a lot of different ways. But I wanted to be closer to family. My family lives in Indiana, Ohio, so and I had connections with the Sisters of St. Joseph, and the former director here used to be a CSJ, a Sister of St. Joseph. And so there was a connection there, and sort of integrated, the White Violet Center integrated not only my spirituality or my spiritual heritage, but sort of this learning to care for the earth, and an internship that sort of cultivated those skills. And it's been wonderful being here for that reason. The staff is very knowledgeable, and there's a lot invested in the interns here in terms of workshops offered or resources. There's a great library, and just, yeah, I mean, the interns are treated very well. We've had several, Robin's put together several workshops on, we met with the person who farms our property, and we talked about farm equipment, which was very educational, and we've had one on herbalism, we've had one on taking care of chickens, an alpaca 101 workshop. We've had one on weed identification and insect identification, good agricultural practice standards. Yeah, it's been a full gamma of education. So lately, during the winter is a lot different than the summer. I mean, winter we're skirting fiber. After the animals are sheared, the fiber goes through a number of different sorting. It's just sorting, and skirting is just sorting out the hay and the longer fibers from the shorter ones. So that's winter months. And then during the summer, spring is a lot of seeding and starting plants that we'll transplant in the summer. And so lately we've been, so I'll get up, come to work, and we've been starting to we have for a long time done a lot of transplants that were started in the spring, putting in peppers now. We put in just about 300 so plants of tomatoes, transplants, eggplant. So all of that was started in the spring, and yeah, and after we get those in the ground, so we're starting to weed now. About every day includes a little bit of weeding. Yeah, that's about it. So we get housing, and we get a full money for a meal a day, but it's a big meal, and then we get a small stipend to help cover other meals during the month. Well, I think in terms of farming internships, it's always difficult because for agriculture, small farming doesn't make a lot of money anyway. So you do a lot of work for not a little pay, but that's. But I would sell the experience sort of in a different way. I mean, I think it's work worthwhile. I think the sort of this spiritual foundation that's here in terms of meaning making. That's here is pretty grounded, and I think here particularly the attention in how much is invested in the interns, the education piece I think is super vital, and how well we're treated as people and not just sort of hands to do work. So
you're so much more than hands.
And I thought you said ants.
Ants and ants, like worker bees, worker ants. There's that too.
I'm going to do an homage to Candace here, our garden manager, and talk about the kale slaw, because kale is near and dear to her heart. So one of my favorite dishes, and it's one we look forward to every year whenever the kale is finally up, is to very thinly slice kale. You know, take the ribs out, thinly slice it. You can add pretty much any vegetables you have around. If you have chicken, if you have tofu, whatever, you can throw that in. And then you make a dressing out of some mayonnaise, soy sauce, ginger, and honey. And that's just my very favorite slaw, and we serve it with a lemon balm iced tea, which is really good.
Sounds good.
Parties here are an amazing sensory experience.
Sisters.
Well, no, I mean in terms of we throw like birthday parties, or the staff throws birthday parties, and everyone will bring in a dish, and yeah, it's just it's a miracle in your mouth.
The White Violet Center has a tremendous amount of opportunities, I think, because of all the people who come and visit the grounds. I think one of my goals over the year is to create more of a self-guided tour so that when people come and visit our grounds, they know what they're looking at. We've tied a little bit of the history of this place to it and can help them understand why it is that we're doing what we're doing with that particular area of the land. That's one of my goals. The other is, you know, trying to help make this ministry self-sustaining. A lot of that is going to have to do with improving our offering of food into the community. So between grants that we're able to obtain to help build the local food economy, to branding and selling value-added products, you know, I have great, like wine. You know, these are things I think that we'll be exploring very soon in our future to help make the center financially sustainable. Oh, one of my favorite dishes, you know, I'm a foodie and I love to cook, so it's really kind of hard to really narrow it down. I'm really enjoying right now a radish and white bean salad. It is so good, it's making my mouth water just to think about it. And I'd never really done anything with radishes before but cut them up and put them on a lettuce salad. But this is a wonderful mixture of white beans and radishes and capers and olives and lemon juice and olive oil, and you put it on a bed of lettuce and it just rocks. It's awesome.
I'm Sister Donna Butler. I'm an archives assistant for the congregation. I also am a member of our Congregation Peace with Justice Committee. Well, as an archives person, I came to call myself a keeper of the stories. And many of the wonderful stories that I discovered told me that what White Violet Center was doing, we had done in some way through our history. And I was so excited to discover those stories because I knew a number of our sisters were still struggling with accepting what White Violet Center was for us. And so I thought I can make a difference by making the connection. And what I noticed was everything we were doing, like beekeeping. In 1898, we had a sister who was 78 years old, who had worked in a classroom all of her life, but had always wanted to be a beekeeper. She set up 35 hives, and her first yield was 750 pounds of honey. And today we know how important bees are to 1/3 of our diet, and what a struggle we're having now to do that. We had, even Mother Theodore herself was out helping with the agriculture, and of course we didn't use pesticides at that time. in her journals and diary is the whole planting schedule that they used. We had cows, we had hogs, so we had livestock, we had horses. We had livestock at that time, and we have livestock now.
So when you say that time, what time are you talking
Oh, this would have been back in the 1840s to begin with, and then through our history, different ones, like the cows came much later, the dairy that we had. And in the early days, in Mother Theodore's time, we actually had sheep roaming in the ravine. And like we do carding of the fleece from the alpacas, they were carding the sheep wool. But unlike now, they had to send it out to be spun. And Mother Theodore said, we send it out to be spun at 10 cents a pound. So we were doing that kind of thing with fleece. It's just a different kind of fleece. Orchard. We had orchards at that time. They planted various trees, and they had so many apples at one time that they were selling some of those in town. So I call that the beginning of farmers market. We had an herb garden, and some of our sisters from France were trained in pharmacy, including Mother Theodore, because they had a commitment not only to education but to care for the sick. So we made a lot of our own medicines and stuff, and rosemary water that we would make, we would trade in town for other medicine that we needed but didn't have the money to buy. And we had a sister who traveled to the sick in the area in Mother Theodore's time, not just to ourselves, but she served the people in the area with the homemade remedies. So there's almost nothing that White Violet is doing today that we didn't do in the past. And what I also discovered in our constitutions that we hadn't paid a lot of attention to before was this comment. This particular religious congregation is called into being by God to participate as a community in extending the providential designs of God to all creation.
Wow.
And until we learned the universe story and experienced White Violet, we didn't really pay attention to that particular piece, nor did we pay attention to the fact that Mother Theodore called us daughters of the forest. And all of a sudden, that term became very important to us. And at one point, I made a retreat. I was walking through our nature trail. And I kind of thought, well, this was how the whole place was. When she arrived, it was a forest. No houses, no people. And she was thinking, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to build an academy here and attract people? But so I thought about what it was like for them, and then I wrote this poem that connects what they did with who we are and how they experienced the land. And I called it Daughters of the Forest. Did you ever know we are all on life support? Oh, I don't mean respirators, tubes, and hospital things. I mean things like honeybees and trees, wind and water, sun and soil, farmers and gardeners, compost and creatures, darkness and light. Sisters Theodore, Basilide, and St. Vincent Ferrer, Mary Xavier, St. Liguori, and Olympiade, in a most intimate way, you knew these woods, this land, its seasonal struggles and abundant gifts. Your weary bodies knew how essential to your survival was living in communion with this land. May we never forget why you came. May we reverence with profound gratitude this woodland forest that fed and sheltered you, warmed you in winter's cold, and sustained your spirits with its beauty, a humble partner in the mission of Providence. Teach us, our founding sisters, how urgently the signs of our time on planet Earth call us to be daughters of the forest.
That's just beautiful.
And when I read this to my spiritual director, I cried. Because I said, you know, when I was not here to support those sisters in all the sacrifices they made, the land was here. The land supported them.